What is going on, everyone? This is Zach back here with another episode of Clutch Crew Sports. And here on today's episode, the rest of the crew is going to be given the title of GM for certain NFL teams, and I am going to present them with different scenarios and judge them based on how they, as GMs, would do in those situations. So it's another fun game to play on this podcast episode. Then we're going to look at the lockboard. Overall, for the crew, pretty good week for the lockboard. I finally remembered to start posting them on Twitter beforehand, so the world can at least see that these locks are being made ahead of time. So we're gonna share the lockboard results, and then we're gonna go around the NCAA and talk about the college football playoff semifinals. So packed show tonight for everybody, and I hope you enjoy. Now let me introduce you to the rest of the crew.
What's going on, guys? Eric, the ranting co-host here. Yeah, my Jaguars still suck. This is still known. Another torturous week being a Jags fan, but I'm really excited to see what Zach's got here with this GM thing. He didn't really tell us much about it going into it, so definitely looking forward to seeing what this is about. And so I hope you guys enjoy the show.
And what's going on, guys? It's Connor, the co-host with the most, and I'm feeling a little bit under the weather today. I went and got my COVID booster shot yesterday, and hit me pretty hard, but I'm feeling better. Always feel better when the Steelers beat the Ravens. That's always a plus. So, never going to be upset about that. And it looks like the Hornets are going to hold on and beat the Hawks despite missing 3 of our top players. So I'm excited for that and ready to get into this episode.
What's up, guys? Nate here. Like Zach said, I had a better week on the lockboard than especially last week, so I'm happy about that. Looking forward to the Pats game tomorrow night. I didn't really have a very stressful day of NFL watching today, so that was nice. But yeah, excited to talk about everything.
All right, so you guys are all excited and everything, but are you ready now to become NFL general managers? That is the question.
Dude, so, I've been ready for this. Like, I feel like.
All right, go ahead, Eric. Go ahead, Eric.
My bad, Zach. I'm a Jaguars fan. Of course, I'm ready to be a general manager. Come on.
Yep, Eric's got the advantage here as a Jags fan.
I mean, I know I know Zach and Eric and I have had conversations before about what all of our roles would be like on future NFL teams. So we're ready for this.
Definitely. So, we've played lots of different games in this Around the Shield segment, different scenarios, different, where do you fall on the, the ladder of things. But this is a unique game, and how it's going to work is I've given each co-host one AFC and one NFC team to be general managers of. I will present them a scenario, a question, something like that, and they will respond how they would do as general manager for each of the teams. And then afterwards, I will give my thoughts on if I agree with them or not and how well their case was made, I guess to say. And they will either be awarded a green smiley face or a red X next to their name. So a lot of pressure to get that green smiley face next to your name and not the red X.
Our jobs are on the line here as co-hosts.
Yep. I'm like playing God right now as the score person. I'm Roger Goodell. I guess that's my role in this. But another thing too. This is going to be totally live reactions. I think they know each of Eric, Connor, Nate. They know the teams that they're going to be getting. They don't know the questions they're going to be getting. They might have an idea on what they could be, but I haven't told them until now. So we'll go ahead and start with Eric. Eric. The 2 teams that poor Eric here gets the Browns and the Lions as his teams to be the GM of. But the first question I'll give you, Eric, as the Browns GM, this Eric Conger. Okay. So Baker Mayfield, he doesn't have a new contract yet. This is one of the big things that GMs do. They give out contracts. Tell me what you would do at the end of this season if the season were essentially to end now. And so you've seen Baker's performance to this point. Let's just pretend the season ends. And based on how he's done this year, the prior years where you drafted him, the team, your financial situations, all that sort of stuff, what do you do? Do you give him and also too, I'll say this, if he does take a contract, it's going to have to be similar to the Dak deal. He won't accept anything lower than the Dak deal. So the Dak deal is like the baseline for this. You do have the franchise tag at play. But what do you do? What do you do with Baker here?
Yeah, I'm definitely not giving Baker Mayfield a long-term extension. I don't think he's done enough for our organization. Obviously, there's different factors that go into this, but I think over the course of Baker's time here, for the most part, he's had enough talent to get the job done around him. Our offensive line is pretty solid. It wasn't when we first drafted him, but we've built a solid line around him for protection. He's got great running backs and Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. And he even has, his receivers may not be as great as some of the other receivers in the NFL, but for a while he had Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry, Austin Hooper's, and Njoku are solid, decent tight ends. He's got enough around him to get the job done. He's not like some of these other quarterbacks, say maybe like Trevor Lawrence or Zach Wilson right now, who while they're rookies, they just don't really have anything around them. It's hard to really get a read on them. Baker Mayfield has had enough time and enough talent around him to get the job done. And so far, I'm just not seeing it. As for what I do, though, I know our draft spot is not going to be the greatest in the world. We're kind of middle of the pack right now. So depending on where we finish at the end of the season, I will consider franchise tagging him for a year while looking for a replacement. But I'm definitely not giving him a long-term deal. Definitely nothing like a Dak type of deal. So that is my analysis of my game plan as the GM of the Browns for Baker Mayfield this offseason.
All right. And also, I didn't say before, but I'm going to give you a grade based on both your answers. So not just one for the Browns, one for the Lions. It'll be like a combination sort of thing. So
okay.
That's your answer for the Browns. And now for the Lions, here's your scenario.
Okay.
The Lions, they won a game today. Congrats to them, but
yeah, we did.
They're going to end up with the number. They're going to end up with the number 1 overall pick in the draft. So, there's no Trevor Lawrence in this draft, obviously. There's Kayvon Thibodeau, the edge rusher from Oregon. He's highly rated. There's Evan Neal, an offensive lineman. There's Hutchinson, the Michigan defensive end. You've got lots of options other than QB, but obviously, the biggest need is quarterback. So what do you as the GM do here with this first overall pick that you have? There's no guarantee you get the first overall pick ever again, So do you go ahead and take your quarterback, the one that you highly evaluate the most in this draft, or do you go another maybe best overall player in the draft?
Yeah, I mean, this scenario kind of reminds me as a, former Jags GM, back in the day. No, just I was
all right, Dave.
As Dave Caldwell,
Dave Caldwell here.
I remember though as a Jags fan back in 2013 when Dave Caldwell and all them came into the fold. The Jaguars had the number 2 pick, and we had a terrible team, just like my Lions now are in this situation, and that draft did not have a consensus number 1 quarterback in it either. And while I do think when you're given the opportunity to get a good quarterback, you should take it. However, I also don't think you should take a quarterback just to take a quarterback, especially when you're a team like us where you have a ton of needs. I mean, even if we were to draft a quarterback this year, there's still way too many needs on this team for us to contend. And since it's not like there's no generational prospect like a Trevor Lawrence or Andrew Luck or something like that sitting there, I'm probably going to take Thibodeau from Oregon and start working on getting us some key pieces. And we're already paying Jared Goff a lot of money anyway. So even if we get rid of him, we're still going to be like paying him. So probably ride with Goff for another year. But another option that I will definitely be weighing is, if a team wants to trade up and get that number 1 overall pick, since we have so many needs, if a team's willing to give us, a nice arm and a leg to take that number 1 spot from us, I would consider that too, just to get more assets so that we can start the rebuild quicker. But if I don't get an offer that I like, I'm taking Thibodeau at pick number 1, and I'm starting to rebuild the rest of the team. And then I'll look for a quarterback next year.
Wow. So I've got a real tough decision on grading Eric, because with both of his answers, I fundamentally disagree. So I would give Baker that contract this year, just because I think it's hard to find a quarterback in this league, and he's not, a superstar or anything like that. But I do think this year his bad play can be attributed mostly to those injuries that he's been playing with. I mean, I think, and most other quarterbacks with the injuries he has might not be playing, but he's deciding to play through these injuries, and you can kind of see how it's limiting his play. So I do think this is the best time to sign him up. Quarterbacks, you can suck your thumb of having, it's just like, yeah, you can cry about how much money you're going to have to pay him, but the price tag always goes up. Every single year it goes up. Remember when we thought Jimmy G's contract was huge? Now it's like, oh, he's just making 20 something million. Like, so I would sign him. I would have already re-signed him, but definitely I would do it now. And with the Lions, I would take a quarterback first overall, mainly because I know how you said, if there's not a guy there, but I've still seen so many. I mean, the thing with the Lions is you don't want to be that team that had the number 1 overall pick and you took a player and there was a, all-star quarterback picked later in the draft. Think the Jadeveon Clowney draft might be an example of that. When he went first overall, I think there was a good quarterback that went later, or the Myles Garrett draft. Like it, there's a good chance that one of these quarterbacks is going to end up being pretty good. With the first pick, I think that's such a special spot to be at. It's almost always reserved for quarterbacks. So I would go quarterback there. You did a good job. This is where I'm having a hard time, is you did a good job in, presenting your answers, and you did, present a lot of evidence and counterpoints to what I had just said. But I still fundamentally disagree. So I'm gonna have to copy and paste this.
No.
I don't see what Baker's done to deserve a contract.
All
right, we're gonna mute Eric. No,
well, here, what I'm saying. I'll say this for GM Eric. I agree with you. So
thank you, Connor.
I agree with both your points. So I know Zach's like the judge here, but I completely agree with both of your points.
Okay, wait, hold on. Since I know Zach's X is all that matters ultimately, but since I'm at a 1-1 tie here, I want to see where Nate falls here.
I would tend to agree on both of them. That's my opinion.
What, like this?
Like, with what you said.
Are you agreeing with me and Connor's side, or are you agreeing with Zach's side?
Yeah, sorry, I should clarify with you and Connor's side.
Yes, that's good enough for me. That's good enough for me. Oh man!
All right, GM Eric, you've had your time now. We'll go on to GM Connor. He's got 2 teams here, one from the AFC, one from the NFC, the Texans and the Seahawks. So I will give you your GM Texans job first here. Obviously,
I don't know how I ever accepted this.
you were punished to have to take this job.
Clearly, I guess I did something. I guess
as
a
result of being last place in the
you disagree with
right
Zach too much.
But yeah, you've been given the Texans job here, and my scenario, my question for you is, with Deshaun Watson here, I'll tell you where it stands, and then I'll let you make the decision on what your terms are. But the result of his cases, his lawsuits and stuff, they get resolved, and the NFL basically gives him, I'll say, like a 1-year suspension. So you're starting next season. He's still, on the team. He's got a 1-year suspension to serve. What do you do in the meantime? Do you draft a quarterback this year in round 1? Do you trade him for a quarterback? Do you trade him for more picks? And if you do trade him, what's your asking price, so to say? And then so just, I guess that's a lot to think about. But
yeah.
Those are the terms.
Well,
those are the terms and situation.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess in a perfect world, I would like to trade him, but my only concern with that is, I mean, I feel like with everything, 'cause I mean, I know everything's getting resolved, but like still a 1-year suspension, like I feel like I'm not going to be able to get in return what I feel like I'm going to want. Like I feel like I would want at least a first round pick, but we already saw in the offseason, like with us trying to trade him and no one wanted that. So I kind of don't want it, because if he were to come back and play, I mean, we've seen the kind of talented player he is. Like he's a fantastic quarterback, and if he can come back at that same level, then I don't want to be in a situation where I traded him away for like, a 3rd-round pick and a ham sandwich, and then I'm stuck at 0 again when I could have still had him. So what I would do, because obviously the Lions are going to have the number 1 overall pick, but we're going to be right up there at like probably in the top 3.
I'll say 2 or 3. Yeah, 2 or you've got either pick
right.
2
Yeah,
or 3.
yeah.
You've got one.
I say it depends on what happens when we play our second game against the Jaguars this year, because right now the Jags are at number 2 and we're in. But I will say, for our sake, if the Jags are at number 2, like we're obviously not worried about the Jags taking a quarterback, because they just drafted Trevor Lawrence last year. So if I am the Texans GM, I draft a quarterback, because it's just there obviously is the chance that Deshaun Watson comes back and he looks the same way and he plays the same way and he starts playing at that all-pro level. But then again, a year at this point, it would basically be 2 years off, because he's not going to play all of this year, not play all of next year. Like I need a backup plan, and I don't know where else I'm going to find a quarterback. Like I'm not going to do something where I go and sign a veteran quarterback just to be a placeholder and then hope that Deshaun Watson is the same guy when he comes back. I want to draft someone like Kenny Pickett. I want to draft someone like, I can't remember his name from Ole Miss, but like, he's the other like big quarterback prospect this year. Yes, Matt Corral, that's right. I want to draft someone like one of them to my team this year, so that way, I can get them developed. I can get, at least like, okay, a plan for my future in case Deshaun Watson isn't what he used to be, because like I said, I don't think I'm going to be able to trade him for what I want. So, I'm just going to have to focus on drafting this QB and then getting whatever assets I can elsewhere. Because, thankfully for us, given that we traded away a lot of our team, we do have cap space to play with. So not only can I draft a quarterback, but in the offseason, I can maybe try and go after some free agents to start rebuilding this team, kind of like, how GM Eric had to do with the Lions. Like, we have a lot of rebuilding to do. So, but the quarterback is always the number 1 priority. So that's my answer for the Texans in the quarterback situation.
All right. And now you are going to be GM of the Seattle Seahawks. So you're going up north to Seattle now, and you're the GM there. Seattle has finished 8-9 this season. They miss out on the playoffs. They do have a better second half to the season than first half. So, they end the season on a positive note, but they missed the playoffs here. But now you're kind of in a situation where I kind of want to say you got to pick between Russ or Pete Carroll. Do you trade Russ for a king's ransom, or you fire Pete Carroll and keep Russ and go and start out with a new head coach? Or do you decide to stick with Pete Carroll here and trade Russ for a king's ransom? Or you can trade both. You can trade Russ for a king's ransom and fire him at the same time. It's up to you. So that's your situation here.
So this is actually a pretty easy decision for me. I 100% am sticking with Russell Wilson. I think, in my opinion, it's time for us to move on from Pete Carroll. I think he's had his time. I feel like there's not going to be really a situation where we're going to end up firing him. It's probably going to be more so one of those situations where, these longtime head coaches, they're kind of forced to resign basically rather than outright being fired. But, if I have to make a decision between Pete Carroll, because I honestly don't want to get rid of both just because I feel like that would create too much, chaos within the organization. But I'm sticking with Russell Wilson. I still believe Russell Wilson to be an elite quarterback. It's just this team has been, the past few years, they've had a lot of injuries at the running back position of the ball. So this offense has become very one dimensional. Without someone like Chris Carson's in the backfield, it's really hard for anything to get going with this team. And also I want to, Pete Carroll, he's supposed to be a defensive minded head coach, but maybe it's time I bring in more of an offensive minded head coach to really get this offense turned around, because yes, the defense is our weakness, but the offense is also underperforming. And like I said, I want someone who can bring out the best in Russell Wilson, because whatever ransom I trade Russell Wilson away for, I feel like it's not going to be worth it, because especially when he's still playing at the level that he is. If he was starting to get into a situation where he was getting worse and regressing, then yeah, I would try and trade him right now before it gets worse. But I feel like he still has at least 3 to 4 more solid years left in him. So I want to get as much out of him as I can. And, I feel like if I can bring in a new head coach, get a new system going, use my draft capital towards, maybe getting a running back at some point, and because I know we don't have a first round pick this year. That's the other hard part with this situation, is we don't have a first round pick. But if we can maybe pick up a running back in the second round or something like that, and then maybe whatever money we have, because I know that's the other thing about the Seahawks, is that we also have cap space as well. So if we can maybe go after some more defensive free agents in the offseason, we can start to build again. But 100% Russell Wilson.
All right, so I've had a much easier time giving a grade on this one. I'm gonna agree with you. Quite a
Yay!
Quite a bit. You get the green smiley face now for the rest of the day. Yeah. I don't know why. I just think the smiley face looks so funny. But the Texans answer, I think you did the right thing, taking a quarterback. I don't think they should trade for Tua. That's been what some people have been thinking they might do, because that trade Tua for Deshaun and some other stuff. But yeah, I think you have to hold on. I don't think they're going to get blown away with an offer if he's suspended for a year. So you kind of keep him on the team, and then then after his suspension's over, that's a long time. He could potentially want to come back to the team. That's always a possibility that he decides to return after the suspension's over. But if not, then his suspension's served, and you can trade him not for as much as you would have gotten before all this legal drama, but still, I think you get something to the right team. There's going to be a team out there that's going to feel like they can win a Super Bowl with him and are going to give up a lot. And then the Seahawks answer, I think, is the right thing. I think it's time for Pete to go. I think he's like an old school head coach now. It's the league's evolved, and I just don't see him doing much. I mean, he's getting older too. I mean, it just seems like him and Russ have reached a point sort of like Brady and Belichick where they don't like each other anymore, and it's clear that I don't think they can keep on coexisting. So I think getting rid of Pete makes Russ happier, makes him play better, and with the new coach in there, and I think they overall do a lot better without Pete. Now we will finally bring in GM Nate to the fold, and GM Nate, for you, I've got the Denver Broncos and Philadelphia Eagles, and for the Broncos, my question for you is going to be with the quarterback situation, obviously, what do you do here? Do you go all in for Aaron Rodgers? Let's say Aaron Rodgers, he ultimately refuses to play again for Green Bay. He's done with them after the season. He'll play for anybody else, but not Green Bay, or retire. Is that what you go for? Do you make him like your next Peyton Manning? Do you try and draft a quarterback? Do you try and pick up or trade for one of these other current, questionable quarterbacks floating around the league? What do you do with the quarterback spot for the Broncos?
Yeah, so for me, I think I would not be in on Aaron Rodgers if I'm the Broncos. I know it's like the Peyton Manning comparisons are there, but I just feel like with Rodgers at this point, if he's going to leave, he's going to go to like a real contender. And the Broncos play in what's becoming a pretty tough division. I just don't think he would want to be there. And even if they could make it happen, I feel like if things don't go right year one, he's going to be out of there. And cause, I mean, he's, getting close to 40 and, all that stuff kind of starts to break down. I think the real thing for the Broncos is kind of like they've been trying to find their quarterback of the future for basically since Peyton left, and they've had very mixed results. I think the focus for them should be see where their like draft spot shakes out. I think getting a young quarterback in the draft, if they get hit on the right one, like Kenny Pickett or one of those guys, I think that's kind of the way I would go, as a GM of the Broncos, because I think if they hit on a guy like that and they can keep him around for, a few years at a low salary, they can kind of rebuild around him, because I think the roster basically it's completely turned over since their last Super Bowl win. Nobody, as far as I know, is still around playing in Denver, and I think they just need to go full into the rebuild, because I feel like they try to hang around for a few years after that with the roster they had, and I think now is the time to like blow it up and go full on rebuild.
All right, and then your next team is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles, and for this team, they're going to have 2 first-round draft picks. They're getting better. They just miss out on the playoffs though in the NFC. They don't win the division. They don't get a wild card spot, but they do have 2 draft picks. What do you do with those 2 picks? What are the biggest positions of need do you have for the Eagles in the offseason? What do you do to address that?
Oh boy, I mean, I think it's hard because they just spent the pick on Devontae Smith last year at wide receiver. I think they've got to go back to some kind of receiver there in Philly. Maybe not with their first, whatever pick shakes out to be their highest. Maybe not that high. I'm not 100% on the prospects in this draft. I haven't looked into it too close yet, but I think getting some more help outside will be great for helping Jalen Hurts to keep developing and getting better. They've got, obviously, Smith has been up and down based on how they've kind of used him, but from what I've seen from a lot of Eagles fans, they're getting tired of Rager out there at their other wide receiver. He's been very bad with the drops and the route running and all that. And then JJ Arcega-Whiteside was basically a N'Keal Harry type bust from that draft. He was taken above DK and all those guys. So they really got no help out wide. I think it's not, I don't think you can get a true evaluation of Jalen Hurts as your franchise quarterback until they get him some better help. So I think that's where I would look with at least one of the picks. And then I think the other one we got to go defense there. Again, I'm not 100% on all the prospects you got this year. I don't know exactly where the Eagles pick is going to be either, but I think I think just that defense has been a mess for basically since they went to the Super Bowl and beat the Pats that year. It's been just a mess, and teams basically do whatever they want against it. Even the Jets looked very they don't put up a ton of points, but they looked more capable than I think they've been all year. So I think getting either some kind of upgrading the presence up front, like the pass rush, I think you can never go wrong doing that. Or else if there's a DB they really like, I think that's would be a solid move as well. But yeah, I think get some help out wide for Jalen Hurts and shore up that defense a little bit would be my big focus with 2 picks there.
All right. You did a good job, Nate. You're gonna get a smiley face from me. I agree
Nice.
that they should. I know this is what everybody was hoping for, but yeah, I agree with Aaron Rodgers not to go after him, and I agree with both of the things you had to say about the Eagles because yeah, they've spent first round picks on wide receivers, but like you said, their passing offense has been non-existent basically. And you have to get more help to really evaluate Hurts because he's had flashes and he's shown that he's not a complete failure. So I think you get a good a complimentary receiver to Devontae Smith. You've got a good tight end already. Offensive line's okay, could be better, but you've spent resources there too. And then definitely, like you said, that the rest of the stuff has to be on defense because defense is where they've been really weak. So if they do those things, they could contend for the NFC East again next year. But that's going to wrap up this segment, guys, of playing the role as the general manager. So we had 6 teams to do. Maybe we see this come up again in a future episode with another 6 teams or someone else being the god of the game. But yeah, hopefully you guys.
God of the game.
Yeah, that's basically what I was, the god of the game. Let's transition now to talk about the 3 biggest matchups of next week in the NFL. And a couple of these matchups here are divisional matchups, which are always entertaining. Always seem to be close. We saw that today with San Francisco, Seattle, and Baltimore, Pittsburgh came down to the last play of the game. But for this matchup here, we've got Dallas at Washington. 2 teams kind of going in different directions a little bit. Dallas won on Thursday night against the Saints, but with the way the Saints are playing, that's not a super impressive win. And then you had the football team here win today against the Raiders, who beat Dallas on Thanksgiving. So they're putting together a nice little win streak in Washington. The game's at Washington. So I think the spread on this game is going to be very, very tight. And I'm going to actually have to pick Washington in this one. I still think Dallas is the better team, but I think at home at Washington, I think with the way they're playing right now, it's hard to pick against Washington. Their defense has been stepping it up. They held the Raiders to under 20 points this game, and that offense had been going crazy. So I think they can easily hold Dallas's offense. Dallas, they didn't have the best game in the world against the Saints. Not saying Washington had the best game either in their win, but with a divisional matchup like this, it's going to be close, but I tend to give the edge to the home field advantage. So I'm going to go Washington in a defensive struggle. I'll say 17-14 Washington. Eric, what about you?
Well, you know me, man. I'm picking the Cowboys. Zach and I disagreeing a lot this episode so far. But, yeah, I got the Cowboys. I mean, they've, had some struggles here lately, but I do think they're going to turn it around. And so they got the win against the Saints, and while Washington's on a 4-game win streak, while the defense has been doing pretty good, the offense really hasn't been doing that good. And so I expect Dallas's defense to keep them in check. And I do agree that I think it will be a bit of a defensive struggle, but I think Dallas's offense is going to do enough to get the job done. So I'm going to say Dallas gets the dub here. I'm going to say they take it 23-13. Connor, I'll let you go next.
So I am going to agree with Zach and go with the Washington football team. To me, this team, they just have all the momentum. They've won like 4 straight games recently. And, their offense hasn't been playing fantastic, but they definitely have a very unique offense in the way that like they have a lot of kind of underrated weapons. Terry McLaurin, he's one of the most underrated wide receivers in football, in my opinion. Logan Thomas is back now, and he's a really big key figure for them in their offense. But I think the part that's scariest for a lot of teams, when we talk about great running back tandems, you think of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Well, the running back tandem of Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissick has been really good recently. Gibson, he's kind of going back to his roots, becoming more of a power back. McKissick is an outstanding receiver out of the backfield. And, like Zach said, Washington's defense has been stepping up. So I think it'll be not as much of a defensive struggle as you guys think. I'm going to give it to Washington 27-24. Nate, what about you?
Yeah, I just think that Washington's defense looked pretty solid today against the Raiders. I know Vegas has been kind of up and down, but yeah, I think I'm going to go with you here. Take Washington with somewhat of an upset versus the Cowboys. I think obviously Dallas was a great offense, but I think Washington's going to be a pretty good test for it. I think I'm going to go Washington 21, Dallas 17, and lower scoring kind of game there.
All right. And Nate, go ahead and tell us about this next matchup. Definitely going to be quite a game here between these two teams.
Yeah, I would say if Rams and Cardinals weren't also this week, that'd be the game of the week there. But yeah, definitely two teams are definitely right in the running for Super Bowl contention out of each of their conferences. I think it'll be interesting to see the matchup between the Bills and the Pats tomorrow night. I think that's going to be a big test for Buffalo to see where they're really at. But I think as of right now, I think they match up pretty well. They both have pretty strong defenses. The Bucs looked a little bit shaky today versus the Cardinals, but I think got two solid offenses, and I really want to see how Josh Allen looks tomorrow night versus a good defense in New England. But I think both these offenses obviously have the weapons to put up a ton of points in each other. I think it's really going to be. I think the offenses are going to get the best of the defenses. Just is like my feeling on it. I think Brady's seen the Bills for 20 plus years when he was in New England. Not that it's the same roster or the same coaches or anything, but I think he's just familiar playing them a lot. So that's gonna be interesting. I think that I'm gonna have to go with the Bucs. Not to be biased, obviously, but I just think that roster overall is just week in, week out is hard to beat. I think it's going to be a higher scoring game, even though they do have two good defenses. I think it's going to be. I'm going to go Bucs 34, Bills 20. I think it's going to come right down to it, but definitely should be a fun one.
All right, Eric, what about your pick on this game?
Yeah, I want to agree with Nate here. The Bucs had some struggles going on, but the last couple of weeks they've been putting it to get back together. They're playing better. I mean, of course, their last 2 wins weren't against teams that are as good as the Bills, but at the same time, they did beat the Colts, who did beat the Bills. That's the thing about the NFL, man. Like, you never know what can happen week to week. But I like the way the Bucs are playing right now. Part of this kind of will depend for me on how well the Bills do against the Patriots. Obviously, we haven't seen that game yet. I might change my pick on the weekly picks if the Bills like blow out the Patriots or something. But But right now, though, I just think the Patriots, or not the Patriots, I think the Bucks are starting to put it back together. So I'm going to give the Bucks the edge here. I agree with Nate, too. I think it'll be somewhat high scoring. I'm going to say Tampa Bay wins it 31-23. Zach, how about you, man?
All right. Well, if you remember anything about our looking at statistics episode from a few weeks ago, these two teams were two of the highest penalized teams in the league. So expect a lot of flags probably in this game. You're going to see a lot of flags, I'm guessing. This is to me, this is the game of the week. This could be a Super Bowl matchup preview sort of game. This gives me it definitely gives me vibes of the Chiefs Bucks regular season game in Tampa last year where the Chiefs won. So I'm going to pick the Bills to win. I just think a game like this means more to the Bills, especially, depending on how the result in New England goes, could feel like a must win for them to keep their division hopes alive. Whereas the Bucks have basically wrapped up the NFC South already. And it's always, teams are going to give their best, their absolute best against the defending champions. So, and that's what the Bucks have seen all year. The Bucks they're starting to get things together, but they're not dominant and blowing teams out like 40-0 or anything. And the Bills defense is really, really good. So I'm going to give the edge to the Bills in this one. I'll say something like 31-24 Buffalo. Connor, what about you?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take the Buffalo Bills. No one circles wagons like the Buffalo Bills. My thing for me is just the Buccaneers have just been looking off recently. I mean, I know they've been kind of putting it back together, but, they honestly looked pretty vulnerable when they played the Colts, even though they did win that game. They looked vulnerable in that game. They had moments in this game where, against the Falcons this week, where honestly, had it not been for the complete incompetence of the Atlanta Falcons, I think the Falcons would have given them a better game. And obviously, they thoroughly handled the Giants, but that was the Giants, so, who knows. But, yeah, I agree with Zach, though, that, this game means a lot more to the Bills than it does to the Buccaneers. And I think, the Bills, they're also, they're trying to get out of that funk that they've been in. And, they started it last week with the Saints game on Thanksgiving, and, they're going to hope to try and continue it with the Patriots game. And, even though this obviously aren't the same things, the Bills always want to beat Tom Brady. There's no, there's no love lost between the Bills and Tom Brady. So I think the Bills are going to take this one. It's going to be really close, of course, but I'm going to say the Bills take it 38-35.
All right, and go ahead and introduce us to another good Monday Night Football matchup here with this next game.
Yeah, so Monday Night Football has been doing good recently. So we have the rematch between the Rams and the Cardinals, this time in Arizona. Arizona, they came back this week. They got Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins back. They did have a little bit of a shaky moment against the Bears at one point in that game. They kind of let the Bears back in the game, but they were able to get a nice, decent victory in their return. The Rams obviously got back on track this week by thoroughly dismantling the Jaguars. So hopefully for them, they think they're going to be getting it back on the right track. Matthew Stafford looked a lot better. But for me, I think the Arizona Cardinals are going to take this game. I just don't see the Rams being able to do as much against this defense of the Cardinals. And also, I don't see how the Rams defense is going to stop Kyler Murray. They've been having so many problems against other teams this year that I think, and the Cardinals, they already know how to beat the Rams because they dismantled them last time, and that was in LA. And this time it's actually going to be in Arizona. So I'm going to have to give the edge to the Cardinals. I think it'll be a high-scoring game, but I don't think it's going to be as close as maybe some people think. I don't think it'll come down to a field goal or anything. I think the Cardinals are going to take this game probably 35-20. Eric, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with you 100% here. I mean, the Cardinals are just looking really good right now, and they've got Kyler Murray back. While the Rams got it, together against the Jaguars today. I mean, lately, who isn't getting it together against the Jaguars. So like that's not really. It wasn't like they came back after their losing streak and beat somebody really good. It was expected they were going to win. So I still am not a believer in the Rams right now after the way they played for the last few weeks. So I'm going to give this to the Cardinals. I'm going to do a similar score as Connor. I'm going to say the Cardinals take it by 2 touchdowns, 31-17. What about you, Zach?
Yeah, so I watched most of the Jags-Rams game, and I gotta say, even though the score was 37-7, I I just wasn't impressed with the Rams. They were obviously the superior team, so they made the score look easy, but there was just points where Stafford was missing throws. I'll give them credit; they actually decided to try and run the ball this week, but I just don't trust that. I think Sean McVay, the reason why he was so good for his first few years is because he had Todd Gurley, and they could run and set up the play action pass. But against Arizona, a much better defense, I don't think they're going to be able to do that. And I think they're going to have to rely on Stafford, which when they've had to rely on Stafford recently, it hasn't gone well. Arizona whooped them the first time, I think. I think they'll do the same thing here on Monday night. They also want to, prove and lock up the division, so they've got a lot to fight for. I'll say Cardinals win 28-13. Nate, what about you?
Yeah, I think this is the other big game this week. I agree. I think the Cardinals are going to take this one. Just the way they look today, we're getting Kyler and Hopkins back. And I think the Rams have I didn't see the final score if they won. Oh, actually, no, they played the Jags this week. Sorry. I forgot that was. So they won pretty handily today. But they've been looking kind of like up and down, in my opinion, lately. I think that, getting those guys back for the Cardinals, there's going to start heating up again. And I think it's not going to be an easy win, but I think they're going to get the better of the Rams. So I'm going to go Cardinals. I'm going to go Cardinals 31, Rams 24.
All right. So let's go ahead now and transition to the lockboard and give a recap for the points for the current week. So we all did get points at least. I ended up getting 2 points. Eric got 6. Connor got 2, and Nate got 8. And that brings the total standings now. Eric increasing his lead to 53 total points. We have Nate now jumped all the way up from 4th, I think, to 2nd now at 42 points. So Nate is 11 points behind Eric. We're all chasing Eric at this point. I'm in 3rd with 40. Connor's in last with 39. So, yeah, guys, we gotta unite and beat Eric.
Nah. No need for that.
Yeah, I know how I know how it feels being the target, Eric. I won this thing last year. I know I was the one at this point in the season. Connor and I were flip-flopping during the season. Then I started to take a lead on him, and then I was the target. I think you and me had been flip-flopping, and now you've really taken off the last couple weeks. So you crossed the 50 mark in total points this week. Let's go ahead and see what everybody got right and wrong. Nate obviously got 8 points, so he had the best week. Also had the first pick. So Nate, go through your locks and tell us what you got right here.
There we go. Yeah, so the first one I got right was UTSA over WKU. That was my first pick and the first pick in our draft overall. That was just like a conference championship matchup that I really liked. I thought UTSA is basically rolled all year, and I was like, I don't know why they were not favored in that one by Vegas. I just figured, like, out of all these matchups, it's probably the safest underdog one I could take. So I obviously worked out fine. And then Detroit over Minnesota. I've been picking Detroit a lot lately in both the just our regular weekly picks. I think I've taken him on the lockboard a couple times too. I just kind of figured like one of these days they got to get a win. They've been so close. They were super close the last time they played the Vikings, and I went with a 5-pointer there again, and it paid off for once. So basically, hopefully, made back some of the points I lost trying to pick Detroit earlier in the year. So that was nice to finally work out. And then my last one was I picked the Giants over the Dolphins today. That one was kind of surprising. Like neither of these teams are that good. I didn't expect a whole lot out of the Giants, but I thought Miami's been struggling. I thought they could pull it off, and they got like 10 points or something. So disappointed I couldn't go 3 for 3, but I'll take 8 points any week, especially with how I've been lately. So yeah, good to have a positive week to talk about. But let's hear your pick, Zach.
Yeah, mine not so good this week as I only got 2 points, but my first round pick, definitely an upset here. I really got all of my college football predictions, personally, made. I got them all wrong basically, so no shocker that I ended up with just 2 points. But I picked Iowa over Michigan. Really, it wasn't even close. Nobody had to. These other 3 guys weren't, staying up trying to watch the score, being like, "Oh, come on, Michigan, pull it out." It was pretty. We all kind of knew how this was going to go after the first quarter. Michigan handled them easily, but I thought, wait, what?
Oh, I didn't say
Hello?
anything.
Oh, I thought I heard like Connor say something, but
No.
am I like
am
I like lagging or something?
No, you're fine.
Yeah, no, you're
Okay,
fine. I don't
cool.
know what that was.
That was really weird, but yeah, so I got that one wrong. You never know with my internet, so that's why I had a little heart attack there. But the next round, I picked the Suns to beat the Warriors, which just happened on the wrong day because they beat them earlier in the week. But the game on Friday, I guess it was at Golden State. Golden State won. They broke Phoenix's 18 game win streak. So as a 3-point possibility, shame on me for picking the team that won 18 games in a row to win and they lost. So, shame on me. And then I did get the I did get the 76ers over the Hawks pick correct. This one came down to the end. But Philly, thank God Philly won this game and I finally got some points. It was just 2 points, but it did feel good to
Hey, I've been there,
get some
man.
positive points. I know it always feels good just to break that losing curse, get some positive confidence with your picks. So definitely gonna be interesting to see how these last few weeks go for me. But I know I got to get some major points these next few weeks to catch up. Connor, talk about your 3 picks now.
Yeah, mine were along the same line as yours. Not fantastic. Still really looking back to woulda, coulda, shoulda when I could have had those 13 points last week. But my first pick was I really wanted that UTSA pick, but unfortunately Nate had the first pick, so he went with that. So I went with USC over Cal. This game got postponed to later in the year, but USC was able to give BYU a really close game, so I figure and Cal's not been very good, so I figured they could do something good in that game, but unfortunately, Cal pretty much controlled it for the whole time. So, it wasn't a huge margin of victory type win, but Cal still won the game. So, I missed out on 3 points there. I think I got right in the second round. I had the Seahawks over the 49ers. The Niners, they've been looking better recently, but I figure it's hard to pick against Seattle when they're at home. It's one of the hardest places to play in the league, and Russell Wilson finally had a decent week, and they were able to take the win there. And then my last pick was in the ACC championship, Wake Forest. I took them to beat Pitt, which unfortunately for me in that one, Wake Forest was up 21-14 after the first quarter. It looked like it was going to be a shootout. And then after that, Wake Forest never scored any more points, and Pittsburgh ended up winning 45-21. So that also ended up being a blowout, unfortunately. So definitely not the best week, but it's not a 0, so I can't complain too much because I have had enough of those 0 weeks this year that even 2 points, I'll take it. So, but like Zach said, I know I'm going to have to be probably starting to get more aggressive with my picks in the weeks coming up because starting to fall a little too far behind and we're getting further in the year.
All right, and Eric, you picked last in this week's draft, but you did get 6 points. Tell us what you got right.
Yeah, this was my second week in a row having the last pick, and I actually had another good week again. So I've been enjoying my recent success. I got 2 of my 3 picks right. Like Connor, I wanted that UTSA pick that Nate got, but I didn't get it. But thankfully for me, my second pick that I wanted that ended up being my number 1 pick was another odd, conference championship game that we would really normally never touch. But I went with Northern Illinois over Kent State, and just kind of researching it, I felt like Northern Illinois was better than them, and so I decided to take them, and it worked out. So I got 3 points for that one, and then my second pick, which I know is kind of double-edged sword.
You suck for this one, Eric. You really suck. I told you sucked for it.
Yeah, I saw that in the group chat, but yeah, I guess you didn't pick this one as high as me, so I got it. But the Steelers over the Ravens, and so obviously Connor's happy that his Steelers won, but I know he's not happy for me to get the lockboard points. But that one came down to a crazy ending where the Ravens could have tied it at the end when they scored a touchdown, but they went for 2 to try to take the lead and didn't get it. So Pittsburgh ended up getting a nail-biting 1-point win there. And then since I had the last pick, I had some other picks that got sniped, although I don't think they would have been correct either. But so I ended up with the Jets over the Eagles as a potential 5-point play for my last pick. And the Jets were actually doing great offensively. They scored 3 touchdowns on their first 3 drives, although their kicker couldn't make an extra point. And so then they were forced to go for 2. So with their 18 points that they had, it looked kind of weird, but it was 3 touchdowns. But the problem was the defense couldn't stop a nosebleed. Gardner Minshew had his first start as an Eagle, and he was lighting the Jets up. So that was probably a pick I shouldn't have made, but I just thought if there was a 5-pointer that could happen, maybe that one could happen. But obviously, though, I'm not going to complain about the 6 points. I'm happy to still be in the lead. So obviously, there's still a few weeks left, so it's definitely not over, but I will happily be, compared to where I was at last year this time, I will happily take this.
All right. And for the next week's lockboard draft, Connor and we need these first 2 picks to go well. He's got the first pick. I've got the second one. Eric's got the 3rd pick, and Nate's got the 4th pick. So let's transition now, guys, and talk about around the NCAA. Obviously, we have to talk about USF not getting the bowl game. No, I'm just kidding.
Like, did they finish like 2-10? Like, hold on.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm joking there. But
how did Tennessee not get like a BCS game?
Yeah. Alabama's number 1. Who's heard of them?
Tennessee in the Sugar Bowl, guys.
Yeah.
I'll say this: they should be ranked ahead of San Diego State after what we saw on Saturday. But
yeah,
that's something else.
I have no clue how San Diego State is still in the top 25 after that absolute dismantling they took from Utah State. Kind of wish I had thought to pick that one in the lockboard, but
I would. Yeah. That was not on my radar at all. But
same.
Would have been nice. But after Saturday's results, we all kind of were like 95% sure about the results, and they, we were right. Cincinnati got the 4th spot. There wasn't a, horrendous, stealing by Notre Dame to get the 4th spot. Georgia,
that would have been
they
the
lost.
Ultimate, that would have been the ultimate disgrace, considering that Cincinnati beat them. Like, I would have.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they had to get the 4th spot, but Georgia, they slipped down to 3rd after losing to Bama. Basically, Bama and Georgia flip-flop since Bama beat them, and Michigan stayed at the 2 spot, whooping Iowa. And that's really all that matters for the playoff now. Is just these 4 in the matchup. So between the 2 and the 3, the numbers don't really mean that much. Whatever color jersey that they get, ooh, big deal. But yeah, so you got Bama and Cincy, and you've got Michigan and Georgia. And what we're gonna do here to close out the show is we are each gonna take one of these 4 teams and basically say how they're gonna win the national championship, make an argument for why they should win the championship. And so we'll do this for each of the teams. And we'll go ahead and I'll start things off with the number 1 team, Alabama. I mean, basically, I don't know how they're not the favorite to win. They're the 1 seed. They play Cincinnati, who on paper they should beat. Cincinnati is not a pushover or anything like that, but they just beat Georgia, who was considered all year the best team. They were undefeated. There's no reason why they can't beat Cincinnati. And then they face whoever wins between Michigan and Georgia. If it happens to be Georgia, well, they literally just beat them by like 20 points. If it's Michigan, I just think that's a massive advantage for Alabama. I mean, the thing with Bama is, you've got the Heisman winner on their team. Bryce Young's probably going to win the Heisman. The defense is playing better. They're getting better pass rush. They're starting to get interceptions. They're starting to look a little bit more like the traditional Alabama's defense. The biggest thing though to me that gives me confidence for saying why Alabama will win is how their offensive line fared against Georgia's defensive line. That was supposed to be a matchup where Georgia's defensive line's the best in the country. They'd given up their defense in general had just given up like 7 points a game or something like that, and their offensive line gave Georgia all the problems that they could handle because they couldn't get a pass rush really on Bryce Young. They in the first half a couple times, but for most of the game, Alabama just through to their receivers, tight ends, and everything. They're a very balanced offense. They don't have just one go-to guy that you can shut down. They've got receivers on both sides like Mechie and Williams. I think if Alabama's fully healthy going into the playoffs here and they don't lose Bryce Young or anything like that, I think they've got the offense, they've got the defense, and obviously they've been here before, which is, I do think something to point out is they've been in these situations before. Obviously, the team won the championship last year, but we saw it against Georgia. I mean, Georgia was the favorited team, but they're still kind of the newcomer to all this. It's really until someone beats Alabama, it's hard not to pick against them, So that's the easy case to make for Alabama, considering how they looked on Saturday. But I'll go down and let Connor talk about the number 2 team here, Michigan, and why they can win it all.
Yeah, so, the Michigan Wolverines this is their first time in the college football playoff. They finally got the monkey off their back. They beat Ohio State, and now here they are staring down the Georgia Bulldogs in the first round, and then, likely, if they get the win over Georgia, likely a date with Alabama in the national championship. I think one thing for one thing for Michigan right now that I think is helping them compared to the rest of these 4 teams is that, it's all about, we've seen this so often with the New England Patriots in the NFL, or like with the Tampa Bay Bucks last year. Michigan, they were looking kind of shaky for a minute there in the middle part of the season. They barely beat, they were barely beating teams like Rutgers and, Nebraska, and, they had that close loss to Michigan State, and everyone thought, oh, that's going to be it. Like, Michigan, no shot anymore. This is the hottest team in college football right now. They came back after that loss to Michigan State. They whooped Indiana. They, pulled off a close win at Penn State, one of the toughest places to play in college football. They got a nice win the week after that, and then they thoroughly dismantled Ohio State and then thoroughly dismantled Iowa in the Big Ten championship. So this is the hottest team in college football right now. They're balanced on all sides of the ball. They have the best pass rushing tandem in college football. They lead the college football with the most sacks by a tandem. Aiden Hutchinson is just a monster. He got CJ Stroud for 3 sacks in that game against Ohio State. And I think one thing that a lot of people also are forgetting about this Michigan team, Cade McNamara's played better, but Michigan, they really have a run game going. I mean, who can say in the last, 10 plus years or so that they ran for almost 300 yards on Ohio State? Like, that's just insane. Ohio State's always had this, fantastic run defense. I mean, even when you look at when they played Michigan State, Kenneth Walker was like a Heisman candidate, and they held him to basically nothing. And then they come back the next week and Michigan runs for almost 300 yards. It's like, how does that happen? It's because Michigan's really good. They have a good tandem of running backs. And so that it can take the pressure off Cade McNamara, because that was the problem for them in the past, was they were trying to rely too much on Cade McNamara and he couldn't get it done. But now that they have that balanced attack going, it's really going to help them a lot going forward. And honestly, for me, like, I think probably this Georgia game is going to be it feels weird for me to say this, but I think this Georgia game is going to be tougher for them than the Alabama game. I mean, obviously not, Cincinnati could beat Alabama, but, if we're going off the basis of what probably should happen, I think this Georgia game will be tougher for them than the Alabama game, because honestly, for Georgia, like, that defense is still fantastic. I feel like what happened in that game with Georgia just has some, like, weird kryptonite weakness to Alabama that happens whenever they play them. And, it's kind of like whenever the Steelers used to play the Patriots in like the Brady and Ben years, like the Steelers could look like the better team, but as soon as they go and play the Patriots, like they just get dismantled. And I feel like that's what happens in college football with Georgia whenever they play Alabama. Even if they are the better team, they just get dismantled. So if Michigan can get past Georgia, I think they can really take it to Alabama. Alabama's offensive line has been really, really questionable throughout the whole year. Like, yeah, they held up well against Georgia, but, all the weeks before that, especially against Auburn of all teams, they looked really bad. I mean, the fact that they had to go to like triple overtime to beat Auburn is really, really bad. So I just think, like I said, the all around talent of this Michigan team, and also just how hot they are right now, is what's going to take Michigan to the national championship. So Eric, tell us about the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah, so the Georgia Bulldogs will win the national championship, and here's why. First of all, I know a lot of people are probably out there saying, oh, they lost to Alabama, they've been exposed, maybe this team's not as good as we thought. But let's be real here. Georgia is still a very solid team. And Connor brought up a great point about Michigan's run game. But while Georgia's defense was not as good as they normally are in that game against Alabama, it was mainly the secondary that was the problem. Alabama really could not run the ball in that game. And I think for this first matchup against Michigan, I really think Georgia's defense is going to do a great job of stuffing the run and then forcing Michigan to pass. And when Michigan is forced to pass, that's when they're not as good. Michigan is best when they're able to be balanced and be unpredictable and you don't really know what's coming. So that's going to be the key for the Georgia Bulldogs in this first game against Michigan. And if they make it to the final, assuming they make it to the finals, which is what I'm obviously arguing here, then the key for them is going to be to get off to a great start and get a nice lead early in the game, whether it be like a touchdown or 2 touchdowns or whatever. Because one, Georgia's passing offense is not the greatest. That's their weakness on the team. So if you're the Bulldogs, you don't want to get behind. You want to have a lead so that you can run the ball, you can do play action, you can be more balanced. Because we saw when Georgia got behind against Alabama and they were forced to go out of their comfort zone that, there was a bit of a struggle there. So, and I think this loss against Alabama was a good thing in a way, because I kind of wondering if in Georgia's mindset, if they had the mentality of, well, we've been dominating everybody. The most any team scored against us was 17, which was Tennessee. Like, we're just going to steamroll Alabama and we're going to steamroll our way through the college football playoff. But I think that loss was a good thing, because I think it was a wake-up call for them. And I think they're really going to get it together here, and I think they're going to beat Michigan. And regardless of what happens between Alabama and Cincinnati, I don't want to assume Alabama will win, but assuming they do, I think they can go in there and get their revenge. But so like I said, the keys are get off to a good start, keep the lead, force teams to throw on you, play from behind when you can really attack the passer. Don't let these teams get off to a hot start. Use your run defense to your advantage and shut these teams down and take it to the championship. Now, Nate, I know there's been a lot of talk in this right now about how Cincinnati's not going to do anything. Alabama's going to blow them out. They're going to lose in the first round. But how is Cincinnati going to defy the odds here and take the national title?
Yeah, so Cincinnati made their way into the playoff, repping the Power Six American Conference there. Yeah, like you said, a lot of people are not even the chance against Alabama, and it is definitely a very tall order. Alabama just made the other undefeated team left. In Georgia, they gave them their first loss. So, in Georgia, on paper, is a much stronger roster than Cincinnati. I think the biggest thing for Cincy is just it's really about, can their guys up front on the O line and D line really hold their own against Bama. That's been the strength of Alabama really for the past decade plus. And it's just, if Cincinnati gets blown off the ball versus Alabama, it's basically over for them. Bama can then just run the ball. Really, if Bama can run the ball at will, like, it's gonna be a nightmare for Cincinnati, because Bryce Young is good enough already through the air. I think Josh Mechie I think they announced earlier today that he tore his ACL versus Georgia, so I don't think he's going to be available, but they still have a ton of weapons, and Bryce Young has really picked things up towards the end of the year here. But I think for Cincy, it's just really there's not a whole lot you can say, I guess. I don't know their roster top to bottom, I'll admit. I've seen a few games. They look very good versus Notre Dame. They matched up well with those guys. A big, I guess, independent, but basically equivalent to a Big Ten team. So they've played against big athletic guys before. I think obviously Bama is on a different level as far as the speed and all that goes, but I think it's really just if they can come out with a game plan to try and, I guess, force some mistakes. That's really how they're gonna stay in the game. They gotta make Bryce Young look like a true freshman, which has been a tall order for any team since really middle of the season. But if they can do it, they might get just enough to hang in the game. And Desmond Ridder really has matured over all his time at Cincy, all the games I've seen them play against UCF. He's seemed to get better every year. So if they can, basically, if Cincy's defense can stay in the game, which is a big order in itself, I think Desmond Ridder can make enough happen to potentially keep it close. And I think if they can find a way past Bama, I do think that the final matchup is going to be more favorable. Not that I'm still going to pick them as a favorite, but I think if they can get past Bama, I think they could definitely beat Georgia. And I think Michigan, I think they could definitely beat as well. I think that's a more favorable matchup just because of how they look versus Notre Dame. I think those are kind of similar rosters, just like those Midwest kind of style teams there. So, again, I'm not saying they're the favorite by any means, but I think if they can squeak past Bama, and if that happens and there's no letdown in the championship, I do think that they could, make an upset happen. They're definitely in the fourth spot for a reason. I know you can't really take them out because they're undefeated, but I do think that they're definitely a top 10 team talent-wise. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do. I'm glad that they're finally getting a shot here, though, whatever happens in the next couple of weeks.
All right. Yeah, I think we can all agree. Personally, I don't like any of these four teams, but I know that's usually how the college football playoff goes. But I am rooting for Cincinnati out of these four. Like I said, don't ever confuse me as a Cincinnati fan, but I'm going to be rooting for them this playoff time. So that's going to wrap this episode up, guys. Hopefully you enjoy listening and watching, and we will be back next week to discuss more around the Shield and other things. Until then, guys, remember, be clutch.
Bye.
See ya.
Peace.